Welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a pre-recorded video, not live, and I have a pack of vintage paper. This one came in a pack of 60 different sheets. I've used it once or twice before, not too much, but I've always liked the look, and I thought I would just get back to some simple stamping here. Let's see. There's different types of looks with this. I bought this one because it had this really strong vignette on them. Well, I don't know, this one it's in the corner here, but for the most part they were kind of shaded on the perimeter here in the full 8.5 by 11 size. I've been working a lot with the half sheet just because I don't work in full sizes too often. But there's some really great looks here, and I've always liked the look or idea of making something look antiqued, and I'm usually doing that with inks, using brown inks, the distress types of antique linen, old paper styles of inks just on white cardstock. But you can really get a pretty significant head start if you have your entire background foundation layer already texturized and colored, and maybe even framed off with that vignette, the darker edges type of thing. But let's try something out on this, and I don't know, on this type of thing, I guess you could use, a decent amount of color, but I don't think it would really be in theme with the entire kind of concept of this. So I think just keeping things kind of more monochrome, grayscale over the top of this would be the best. All right, so if you had some kind of color like, I don't know, maybe this kind of charcoaly aged brown, that would be pretty good, but I think I'm just going to go into it with black and just stamp directly on here. So let's see, let's pick out this one here, just caught my eye right now. And I think I'll do something in this, on this piece. All right, I'm just going to go with a bunch of designs that are just right on my table here. And I think I'm going to go with a VersaFine Clair, just because VersaFine Clair is really dark, and I haven't used it for a while. I've been using a lot of metallics, things like that, that aren't going to really accept an oil-based pigment ink very well. Okay, now this is just a thin paper right here, text weight of some sort. I don't know how many pound this is, but it's just like a regular, I don't know, decent quality text weight stock here. And oh, I don't know, I'm not even going to guess what weight it is, but pretty thin, and it's just something that you would, I don't know, print out something on. Probably. I don't know if people are or scrapbook maybe with it, although this is 8.5 by 11, not like a, I don't know, 12 by 12 or something of that sort. But anyways, let's just get right on into it here. I haven't used this VersaFine Clair in a while. Hopefully it's nice and juicy still. I don't even know if I have a re-inker for this one. I might have bought one, but I don't recall. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a foreground. I did this scene recently using a holographic foil with several different layers of spray sealant to seal things down. So this isn't, I don't know, it would be the opposite of that, but it would be quite different from that. Okay, so my VersaFine Clair was a little bit, I don't know. It's not super juicy, so that one kind of impression stamped out a little bit faded, but that's all right. So let's go with that. There'll be a little bit of a lake here. I'm going to put in this mystic trees left and right in here. And we'll give it this old type of ink painting look, hopefully. Now this is one where there's no white in here, so I usually don't do too many things where I don't use the white pigment ink at the end to give it atmosphere, but I don't think you would do it on this because there's no white in here, so there's no white light. Now I could add something in here, but again, I think it would go against the character of the paper. And what you can do, but in this one I'm just going to try to, I don't know, kind of harmonize with the, the existing paper quality and not kind of alter it too much. Although that would be a good kind of experiment for me to do at some point in time. All right, so these matte types of papers, they're they're absorbing the ink, I could tell, so things aren't stamping out quite as dark. But that's why I'm going with the dark ink to begin with here, or one of the darkest inks to begin. Just because, you're probably going to lose some value from your inks because the surface is so absorbent, okay? But it kind of goes in the spirit of the piece too, having it a little bit kind of aged and faded out, maybe. If it stamps out darker, that's great. But if it's not, that's fine too. Now, if I re-ink this Claire, it would, I'm sure it would stamp out darker too. But let's just go with this for now and see how it goes. All right, Mystic Hills left and right, boulders with lichen, things I've been stamping with a lot lately. Now let's go on with, well, let's see. Let's go with the smaller boulders with lichen here, just to kind of carry this out a little bit this way. I'll give it a little bit of foreground down there. I might do something kind of that I haven't done before, but use this as a kind of a background image. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out what I want behind these trees. I'm going to put something up here. Composing in my head. The autumn stuff too. I just used that one. I don't know if I've used the autumn imagery. I might make this kind of a waterside area back here and put, I was thinking about a cabin or something like that. Let me pause the video and we'll insert something in there. All right, it changed up. I decided to go with Lakeside Cabin here. I don't think I've used Lakeside Cabin with these Mystic series images quite yet, so I wanted to see what they would look like. I think it looks pretty good. Lakeside Cabin comes individually or with Nature Set number 6. And I need to put in a background of some rocks in here, but I might want mountains back there instead. So let's employ some trees, I think, before then. If there's trees behind the cabin, chances are, unless it's just an isolated island, okay, but there'd be other trees on the side here. And you do get, different types of trees in given areas, like a little ecosystem. So you won't have just all the same tree, but I am going to put some of those pine trees in the foreground too, just to kind of merge foreground with background, thematically and shape-wise. I'm using some cling foam stamps right here, but the other ones were just unmounted, so I have the tack and peel on one side of my block. Okay, your first little kind of, I don't know, whatever stamping technique trick here is to, I'm gonna wipe off some of the bottom of this, okay, so that it just stamps a little bit lighter when I'm stamping it over something that represents something closer to us. So I'm stamping background trees, so as they transition into these areas down here, it just kind of peters out a little bit, okay, like it's, I don't know, in some mist or some clouds, something like that. Maybe I took off a little bit too much. I'll try to take off a little bit less so there's a little bit more of a transition. Okay, so I took off roughly around here, and see I'm covering up these. So if it was all black, then I wouldn't be able to see this as much. So I've wiped off some of that base so it, you know, so it fades in there, so you'd still see this tree. See, if it was this, you know, this was this black, it's not quite as, I don't know if the word is visible, but it just, you want it a little bit lighter if possible. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but it just, things read a little bit better that way, as opposed to them reading like they're on the same plane. In other words, that looks like farther back too, because things in the distance often look lighter because they're, you know, light's reflecting off of it and kind of bouncing back to our eye and going through all that suspended sediment in the air, like moisture, etc. All right, let's see. I'm going to wipe off quite a bit off this one here because I'm going to have it like right in here. Okay, and let's put some more right there. Now, I'm thinking like it'd be kind of interesting to do something in like a walnut stain for the background. But if we did that, we'd have to kind of incorporate more of that color into the coloring process. And I'm just, you know, I haven't done this for a while in this type of paper, so I'll experiment with that at some later date. Okay. All right, so you have all these different kind of layers of depth within the scene. And I was thinking about some mountains up in here. We have a lot of space up here. This, you know, you can leave it blank if you have like a word stamps or quotes you want to put up there, but if you're not going to do something like that, it would be a good idea to add extra imagery, so I'll pick out something to add for the background. All right, tall rock large. Let's give this one a try. Wiping off the bottom a little bit for that transition. Let's go over to the left-hand side, and then we'll also use it on the right. And then maybe this will represent some canyon or something like that, where this setting is located. All right. Kind of wiped off this side a little bit, like the light is coming from within here and shining on the mountain, just, you know, slightly. And let's go like that. very, very light in the background. Maybe one more over here, huh? I think. Yeah, let me see if I can find the smaller version of this. Smaller version here. This one's roughly, well, the block is 2 by 3 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mask off this one. We're going to come down about like so. So it'll just look like another mountain kind of off in the distance. Hopefully it stamps out a little bit lighter. If it stamps out darker, that'll be fine, but yeah, it's a little bit lighter. So it's more distant than that. But like I said, if it's stamped out darker, then I would just add some shading to this one. All right, so we have our structuring in here as far as our foundation, background, foreground, midground. But we're going to add in some additional foreground imagery into here. I do think my VersaFine Clear is getting a little bit dry here, so hit that like button so I can buy a ton of reinkers. Okay, let's see. Let's switch up. I'm going to use my Brilliance Black. That's really quite moist here. And I'm trying to think. I think I do have a VersaFine Clear reinker around here somewhere. All right, tiny rocks. Adding it around the base of my objects. Another thing you can use here too is something like water pattern small, 231C. That'll give you this rippled pattern, but I've been using this rock lately for a lot of my water types of texturing. That kind of brings all the different imagery together a little bit more from a textural standpoint. It just looks like kind of more like still water with this one. You could use both. You can use water pattern and, these rocks if you want to. But that just kind of anchors things down a touch more, don't you think? I'm talking about textures in general. And it brings a little bit of continuity between these three main focal points in the scene. All right, let's get with some of the foreground elements. Kind of going for that, like I said, real kind of weathered, aged look here, and I think it's achieving it. It almost is a little bit of the opposite of the kind of the sensibilities of the last piece that I did, which was on holographic, like super loud holographic metallic cardstock, using just the kitchen sink of all the different media that I tend to use in my scenes. Acrylic paint pens, pigment inks, the sealants, a lot of layers of alcohol ink. Really fun stuff. So you can kind of compare and contrast. Look how dark that one stamped out. You can compare and contrast your pieces, or just work in themes. Do something that's very aged like this, but then do the composition on a different type of surface to contrast it against. Could represent different seasons, as we've talked about in the live streams. All right, couple different impressions with the leafless pines large. It's interesting how dark those stamped out. Maybe, I don't know if it's because it's solid, or I don't know, I did switch to the Brilliance here, so the Brilliance is just, it's not just inherently darker ink than the VersaFine Clear. I just, you know, I've re-inked this Brilliance one, you know, recently, so, you know, that, I don't know, that could be it. Okay, let's see. I can barely see through my tack and peel. I really need to wash it off here. But it's good to have your foreground probably a little bit darker, just, you know, for that separation of distance. And you can do that a lot with the use of value. You have certain things darker in the foreground. Now I'm going to cluster these trees like that and not stamp them out just so uniformly, so you overlap certain things a little bit more and it looks a little bit more natural. I mean, if you don't, you know, if you have something going on in the background, then you don't want to cover it up either, but just really vary your kind of impression vicinity in terms of repeated imagery. So see, this one I went right through that one. This one's a little bit more separate, but, and let's get another one over here, I think. And like I said, you don't want to cover up everything in the foreground here. You know, make it look like a picket fence or something like that with kind of a uniform application of design at the same height, at the same distance from another. Kind of make it look a little bit more varied from impression to impression. This one I'm doing a little bit higher, or the highest of all the pine impressions here. Usually I go a little bit higher with the leafless pine because I figure that's the most aged one, and it got, I don't know, the tallest tree. That those are the ones that are getting hit by lightning, you know, or the chances that, you know, are greatly increased of getting hit by lightning. You know, the taller something is out in the forest. All right, so we have a, you know, our composition there. Let's bring in, or kind of introduce, a focal point element. One of the images that I was looking at in the other scene from last week was this, either the fisherman in water or the fisherman in boat. And I thought I would use one of these today, maybe. Yeah, I just use this one. Yeah, that would look, I think that would be down here. This one's a little bit more distant. You can see them. So see, if I stamped it up there, it'd be like this. You know, that would be like some doghouse or something like that, because it's on the same plane or distance. So you stamp them a little bit lower down here, and things by scale, you know, would be in relation. It's not like, you know, if you're off by, you know, a quarter inch or something like that, or a half inch, it's maybe an even inch, it's not going to make a difference. But you know, you can kind of move things around on your piece and see what looks more kind of in scale. But even that, let's see if an even smaller one might be better. Although I do like this right here. It's a little bit kind of right in the foreground, though. Let me see if I think maybe solo. This kayak would work too. It'd work like perfectly right down here. But I just used it, so I like to mix things up a little bit. All right, solo canoeist. He's a little bit small for right here, but like I said, if you're off, an inch or something like that, it'll work fine. So that house back there by relation, and the distance is going to be, yeah, it's going to be a pretty big cabin out there for, probably for the location, maybe in 2 stories. But that being said, we have our focal point there. It's a kind of a focal landing point. I don't know what someone looks at first with this piece. It'd probably be the cabin, or I don't know, it might be this little figure here because this is kind of in a lighter tone. Okay, so we have our pieces, our composition finalized here. But now, the thing that I would do on something like this, I would go in and add in some additional shadow work in here just to tweak things around a little bit. It does look like a, kind of a nice aged looking composition here, but things are a little bit, they're a little bit loose. Okay, we want a little bit more of a cohesion to it, all right? So adding just some shadow work, I just have a black colored pencil here, and adjusting our lighting somewhat can improve the overall cohesion by having a common tone laid over everything. Okay, I don't mean to tone everything out or anything like that, but I'm going to apply this where I would apply some shadows. All right, so where would we do that? Like right around the base of things, okay? Now don't add in a huge amount of this. I'm just doing this very lightly right now, so it's giving me maybe a 5% gray, something of that sort. Adding at the base of the object. You can go into it a little bit too, but try to retain some of the lighting that's on the objects as well, okay? There's not a lot of contrast here because this paper's already dark here, mind you. Okay, at the base of this one, now see, I'm kind of blending this out. I'm doing this kind of light. So I'm going a little bit heavier, and then I go light, heavier, light, heavier, light. So you get this transition from darker to lighter like that, okay? And that's where I'm moving away from my objects, okay? So here's my object right here. Go a little bit heavier, or just go with multiple, little passes like that, and just kind of feather it out. See, there's this little window in the house right here. If you want to have that, see, I already have it in the design itself. So all you have to do is, if you want to emphasize that, you go a little bit darker around that. I'm talking about darker, it's like 5%. And see, now you have this window kind of illuminated a little bit more. I can add a little white to that window, and I think that might be kind of interesting. Just to bring it illuminated a little bit more. I don't know if I will. I wanted to keep this one like really, really simple. Simple but complete. So anything in the water, I'm kind of giving it a little bit of this tone. And then if I like it, I can go darker and darker, but see, all these different objects are now sitting in thing. See, this goes like that. This one is going from right to left, left to right. This one, you can't really see that tapering off too much, so let's just add in a little bit more here, like that. Now let's go on these rocks a little bit more. I think we can, this rock right here is really, really light, so let's go in and give it some additional body. That was just a impression thing. I didn't put enough ink on it. But never fear, you can always just add more tone to it post-impression. So foreground is, receiving some additional shadow work. So now it relates a little bit more to the midground, like that, with the same texture in it, okay? I'm going to put a little bit more of these streaks in the water just so that it does read as kind of streaks, or water ripples, or texturing a little bit more. See, I'm tilting my paper in the natural angle of my arm, okay? If I'm doing this, I know you can't see me on camera, but this doesn't feel very natural. But if I have it like this and I'm just going like this is the natural movement of your arm, so get it in that angle that's going to be the most conducive for it. So I'm just moving my arm the way it naturally goes, and you just position the paper accordingly, okay? See that water down here with these, what do you call it, striations? Like that. Let's mirror that same type of thing. I'm just kind of making this up as I go, but these different textural kind of patterns like that for the water, I think that would look good up in the sky as well, so I'm going to add some of those up here. Just add them really lightly at first. You can barely see it like that. See if you like it. You often get the sky kind of, and especially bodies of water kind of doing the same type of thing. You know, like the water, it might be ripples or something like that, or it might be reflections. Up in the sky, it might be moisture or clouds doing that. Let's go a little bit darker high, which will also frame the scene off a little bit more, and as it moves down into the horizon, it's a little bit lighter like that. So you see that these two areas kind of mirroring each other a little bit. It's a little bit too striped though, so I'm going to blend this out a little bit. It's a little bit too matched up, I would think, or I think. And right down here, I'm gonna merge a couple of these. It's a little bit too striped, so you just adjust it. All right. Let's see something here, like pause. I have an eraser here. This is one of those kneadable erasers. I might have went up a little bit too much here, so I'm just going to erase some of that pencil, and I'll work it from the inside out, like that. And I'll just adjust accordingly. Okay. You can use any kind of eraser. You're not just trying to erase, though. I'm just trying to blend in a little bit here. Something like that. This is picking up the colored pencil, no problem. Make it a little bit lighter in here, so you still see that, you know, that kind of mirrored surface, a little bit of the water surface, but I applied a little bit too much. All right, so how about on this mountain here? So the mountain patterning is going like this, so you want to generally work in the direction of the pattern, you know, to keep that kind of that flow or spirit inherent in the design. You want to keep that intact. Okay, so these ones are going a little bit like that, and these ones are going this way, so stay with the angle. Go with the flow. All right. I think I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna add that white in here. I mean, if I did, it would really change that kind of aged spirit of this. It might look kind of cool though, so it is tempting to do that. But okay, now that being said, I do have this instead of um, white. I do have this, these kind of tan ones right here. This is Where's white? This is white right here, just so you can see the difference. Let's give these a shot here. We do have different values of things, and in my paint pen set, these would be kind of in the spirit of this color scheme here. If there were lighter versions of this, it would be, somewhere along the lines of these. So let's give it a shot here. I can just put a couple of these on here and see how it looks. Okay, it doesn't, it's not standing out too much. And I don't want it to, because I want it aged looking, like it's really weathered. So I don't want super brights in here. At least on this piece. Maybe I'm experimenting in the future, and I want I just want to use this as a base for separation with some some, I don't know, whatever regular non-aged looking color schemes. But on this one, let's go with a little bit of this. So I'm just adding some highlighting onto my tree, or the leafless pine at least. Just to make it stand out a little bit more from the background than it is, which it isn't very much. Okay, now as I add this onto this tree, I notice that it really stands out quite a bit, but as it dries, I think because it's absorbing into the paper, it's not as dark, but I don't know. I think it looks okay, so you can see it on these trees a little bit. And how about a little bit on this pine tree, or on the branches here. All right, I think the foreground stands out a little bit more. There's a little bit more dimension. Maybe it's a little bit more exciting. I'll bring out the trunks of these mystic trees a little bit more. It's just kind of interesting adding some of this into this type of paper right here, because I'm usually doing this over tone that I've laid down on my pieces, but this one, like I said, it's just inherently has this colored theme already in here. Okay, now see this on the cabin. I just lightened up the interior lighting, so to speak, of that cabin, which I think it kind of needed. Or I'm just used to seeing that. I don't want it too dark in there. And when you have kind of this interior lighting for your structures, houses, whatever, lighthouse, it just makes them look a little bit more inviting from an emotional standpoint when you have a little bit of illumination on there. Let's go with a little bit on the rooftop. And how about, just some little Very, very subtle, sparkly light on the water surface, like that. And I don't know, just kind of a very big scene here, done pretty quickly, for the size at least. With a little bit of touch on there as far as technique is, but like I said, kind of weathered and aged looking. Uh, I would probably do like smaller pieces, but this was like a really good exercise, trying things out and using that inherent uh, like whole perimeter vignette on this paper. But like even smaller pieces, like card size pieces, on this type of paper like that, I don't know, it has a really good look to it, a nice spirit to it, going with that aged paper, aged, textured, kind of weathered looking paper. So, I don't know, it looks antique to me, and that's what we're going for here, and staying with the spirit of that, of the surface here. Anyways, if you made it through to the end right here, I hope you liked the video and the technique, and you might have some of these different types of aged looking papers already in your collection. It doesn't have to be that kind of aged look. You can do things with patterns too, and someone on the Stampscapes Facebook group added something up there recently. It was kind of more as a matting around her piece, but I thought, that paper right there, it looks pretty cool. It had that aged look, but it was this certain type of patterning on it. But even stamping on something like that, I like the color of it and the aged look to it. And it just made me want to break out this paper and, I don't know, give it a run again. All right, thanks for watching, and thanks as always for tuning in to the Stampscapes channel.